right, folks. Hey, welcome back. It's Carter. Hopefully, we can get some folks to join this today. So, I have thought about this all weekend and how I was going to respond to this. And I think I have a pretty decent workflow of how I'm going to go through this today. So anybody that can't stay for, it shouldn't take any more than an hour to get through this. Anybody that can't stay for that, I will upload this in its full entirety to YouTube. That way you guys can go back and rewatch it, or if there's a point that I make, you can go back and see that. Also, it's stored on Twitch for about 90 days, I believe. But the way we're going to go through this today is I'm going to start kind of like what are we going to be talking about in relation to the Ethereum Dev Meeting. Then we're going to get into the details of each of the EIPs. An EIP is an Ethereum Improvement Plan. So anybody can put forth an EIP. If you have a strong passion about something that you want to see in Ethereum when it comes to the protocol and the technology that drives the EVM, any of the grounding rules of it, anything, you can actually go out there and create an EIP. And it's a proposal, and it's kind of like in a developer world, it's kind of like the backlog, and a lot of things can go into a backlog, but a product owner, quote unquote, will pull things in that they want to actually see in a release. And what the Ethereum development meetings kind of go through some of the EIPs, discuss it with the developers, and then they choose that of what they're going to pull in or what they're going to take a risk on. So you can kind of think of them, I guess, as the product owners per se. Even though, the world community is essentially the larger product owner of Ethereum. But we'll discuss the details of an EIP, and then of each of the EIPs that were in this developer meeting that's pertaining to the proof of work, assurance level, those EIPs in particular. I'm not going to get into the technical EIPs that they discussed earlier in the meeting. The analysis of each of those EIPs. So I'm going to explain what they are. We're going to bring them up on the screen. We're going to read through them, make sure that we've captured the correct notes on what they're trying to say and what they're conveying from a feature set or a change. And then I'll go through the situation of what kind of manifested those and how does it affect in the ecosystem based on my understanding of the way things work and the way of being part of mining for years, since 2011, essentially, in the mining community, of like how does that affect in the ecosystem of the way I see it from that unique perspective. And then I'll go into kind of next steps of that, along with some model and simulation. So I got some paper off to the side here, and you guys can see this camera here, and we got the whiteboard behind us to kind of go through other models and simulations. Now, some of that is going to be exactly what it is. It's a model and it's a simulation of said model, taking effects of what's current difficulty, what's current price, what's the assurance decrease could have on that effect, and then looking at some historicals on what was the effects of certain actions and, are they correlated or not correlated? I mean, there's going to be a lot of speculation in some of that discussion because we're going to have to infer that certain things are connected that may not be. And that's like price and what the developers do, that kind of thing, right? Much in the way that is, does news really affect direct correlation to price and all that, and positive and negative news and stuff, right? So some of that's very speculative, but we can sit there and still run a simulation or a model based on that. Now, I'm not going to be watching the chat too much through this, guys, so anybody that does any kind of bids or subscribes and stuff, I'll get to that later. But we're going to get right into this now, and let's go through kind of what is it? What are we talking about today? So what we're talking about, I'm going to bring it up here on the screen, is, let me see here, we're going to close this one, we're going to close that browser source, and then we're going to bring you guys over to this. So what we're talking about today is the Ethereum Core Dev Meeting 45, and a very particular piece on their agenda. and their agenda here. Ethereum dev team meets every couple weeks, most of the time, unless they're like at a dev meet, at a dev con or something like that. But essentially, Hudson James usually is, I would equivalent his kind of position in it as the scrum master, to where he racks and stacks items for an agenda, kind of solicits developer involvement of any particular agenda item to say, hey, we're going to talk about this. Is this okay for the agenda? Gets that reconciled, and then post this essentially scrum after action, or this is a pre-action, but after action kind of comes in with discussion points on any of these EIPs. Sets kind of a time gate. That's the 1.5 hour meeting, and then links the different appropriate areas where it's going to be simulcasted or live broadcasted. And then essentially the agenda items top to bottom. And the ones that we're going to be talking about today is kind of in this section below under 5, which are the 3 competing EIPs, the Ethereum Improvement Plans, to delay the delay the difficult bomb rather, and reduce and maintain a block reward assurance, like either reduce it or, what are the motivations for that. And there's an EIP in there to adjust potentially the proof of work algorithm, which is how we all work on Ethereum's security side. So the proof of work is what a miner does to secure and post new transactions to the chain and continue essentially the blockchain. So there's a way to do that. Right now it's Etash, Dagger Hashimo, which is an algorithm that is very IO intensive, that right now and for the longest time only GPUs could hold up the network, and now we have a few ASICs on the network. So there's a drive to try to push and de-incentivize ASICs, which are very specific chipsets designed specifically to handle the task of any particular algorithm. So there's an incentive for folks to put forth a motion to try to remove the ASICs from the network by changing the underlying algorithm. So I'm trying to be very broad on my explanation because of just different audience members that may come in that don't understand everything. So what we're going to cover right now is what each of the details of these EIPs are. So I'm just going to read them kind of straight out, and help explain what does it really mean, and of each one, and then we'll go through and essentially create a chart of what's the true differences if we laid them all next to each other, and then what are my necessary opinions on it, and what's the model and simulation stuff. So the first one here, EIP 858. So if we click on that guy, it should take us over to this, and this I think there's just a block reward reduction. I do not have any other details short of this description here. There's code that's associated with it, obviously, as part of this guy here, I believe. Let's see here if this is the one. Oh, that gets into the actual code changes, but here's the description. So the EIP proposal is to reduce the block reward to 1 ETH. As opposed to the 3 ETH per block time, block reward right now. The rationale for reducing this block reward stems from the present tremendous growth in the ETH hash rate and the corresponding environmental cost, as well as the counterproductiveness of fostering the growth of GPU mining. A lot to say about that one, but that's that one for right now. We're just going to go through these, and we'll keep opinions and all that kind of stuff out of it right now. And I will come back through that. So this one is what we have here. So 858 is just 3 to 1. And then there's some rationale behind that, which is opinion. So that's really all that EIP is. I think they came on that call and said that they also supported a difficult bomb adjustment, because I just think they just weren't thinking about like, oh yeah, there's a difficult bomb that we have to address too. So I'm just going to put that one in anyways. Difficult bomb adjustment of just delaying. I could be wrong on that, but I think they came in on that EIP and said that they'd be proposing that. So those are the two items on that one. And that's 858. So let's go back. Let's look at the next one, which is EIP 123. Delay the bomb, reduce the block reward to 2. Now it's a little more than that, and now that's why I'm clicking on it. So if you get down here, they had a little more detail EIP written, which if we click on this guy here, it comes up with essentially motivation, and then some of the specification guide on what's being changed. So let's just go through the specification, and then we'll come back to the motivation piece of it. So specification: relax the difficulty with a fake block number. Essentially just moving, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the EIP. First thing of order is to delay the difficult bomb. And why that matters, like a difficult bomb being delayed or removed. I mean, there's some people that are proposing to have it removed, which doesn't actually make sense if ETH is still targeting to go proof of stake at some point. But this one was just proposing to a certain, forward block, relax the difficult bomb. So that's delaying that. Adjust the block uncle and nephew rewards. Now that's a pretty other significant change when it comes to the assurance, or the way the functional way ETH puts out assurance. So it's not just the block reward, but it also rewards an activity that happens naturally on blockchains when it comes to proof of work, and it comes with competing winners. That if two miners have the right to post the next block, you have two people that have at almost the exact same time found out the key for the next block and then broadcast it to a network. What ends up happening is you have something called a race condition that occurs on the network to propagate, hey, I have it, and the other one says, no, I have it too. And then you have that event creates essentially a stale share, stale block to say, hey, I actually won this effort, but I didn't get anything for it. And what it does is it rewards the posting in a calculation of a portion of both blocks, essentially. So on ETH used to be 5 ETH per 15 seconds, and if an uncle was created, it would reward that next owner the 5 ETH plus 3. From my understanding right now, it's still the plus 3, right? And we're at 3. So what they're trying to propose, and that might be incorrect, by the way, they may have adjusted the uncle reward. I think I haven't looked at an uncle lately, and nor have I gotten an uncle in a while. So, but bottom line, there is more ETH that's issued out if there's an uncle involved. So what they're trying to do is to reduce the supply inflation into Ethereum. Is they're proposing to adjust that block reward for uncles and nephews to be in line with the reduction of the Ethereum main reward, right? So this right here says a divide by 8. I mean, based on a 5 to a 3, from a 3 to a 2 is what they're doing. I think it's 0.25 or 0.375, somewhere around there is what it would be reduced to. So if there was an uncle going forward, if this EIP was consumed, their other part 2 of, let's just say uncle reduction is one of their other features. The other feature reduction on this EIP is to reduce from 3 to 2. So then on this whole scenario, let's play this forward. If this EIP was now part of Ethereum, then what would happen on an uncle situation is you would have, if there was an uncle, you would get the 2 reward plus, like 0.25 or 0.375, somewhere around there, versus like 2 and then another 2. So it's greatly reducing and de-incentivizing any kind of nefarious activity that would cause mining pools or people to exploit the uncle feature, essentially, to where you would potentially, if you want a block, you would take the chance of holding back and broadcasting that block to wait for an uncle opportunity, and then take the chance of winning an uncle once a new propagation started, saying a person found a new block and was going to post the next block, you would release the fact that you had yours, and now you create that race condition, thereby exacerbating the uncle situation. And again, all of this comes down to just what's the output of assurance on Ethereum, and if you're incentivizing that activity, it's going to be nature for somebody out there to probably develop some kind of algorithm to search and with enough hash power manipulate this function. So this is to de-incentivize that function to a point that you're still rewarding it, but you're just doing it at a lot lesser scale. Again, I'm going to hold opinions off to the side. I mean, it would reduce it significantly and stamp down some of the behavior. But again, this is all relative to price. And I'll get into that when I start kind of rebuttaling some of these or making some comments on this entire ecosystem, on this methodology of rewarding and incenting. So that's 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So delay difficult, adjust the uncles, and reduce their block reward from 3 to 2. That's what this is. And, some of their basic motivation is to ensure the network staying at 15 seconds. That's part of what the difficult delay is, or the difficult bomb delay is. That what happens is there's right now, Ethereum, I don't want to say auto-magically, but the way it's designed, the way a lot of proof of work algorithms are designed based on their block time, it has a difficult function that makes the participant in the networks solve a more harder problem to ensure the block time to stay consistent. So if Ethereum is at 15 seconds and more hash rate, double the hash rate comes onto the network, it would start to solve blocks faster if the difficulty remained the same. So it makes the problem more difficult to try to ensure the level of service, the level of block issuance every 15 seconds. And it's not just the issuance, it's the issuance is just the incentive. It's actually the information posting of the transactions every 15 seconds. That's incentivized the people that help produce that, which are the miners. So the difficult bomb was a function that was built into Ethereum to essentially wean off the proof of work activity when proof of stake was ready to go. You did not want to split the chain, so there's a poison pill. The poison pill in Ethereum is the difficult bomb. So if you allow it to go off, it artificially drives up the difficulty, not predicated on the network hash power, but predicated on a series of code that just takes the difficulty up, in a linear fashion, in an exponential linear fashion that just makes it a lot more harder to solve the problem, which then naturally increases the amount of time that it takes to post a block. And we saw this when the difficult bomb went off last year over the summer and until late October when they did the first ETH reduction plus reducing the difficult bomb, or getting rid of the difficult bomb, where we had block times up around around 45 seconds. This activity would delay that, and the first 2 EIPs here look like they're going to try to do that as part of it too, because you want to do that unless they're ready for proof of stake. There's no other reason, like any argument around proof of keeping the difficult bomb in there for any other reason other than moving to proof of stake is like ridiculous. Like it's there for a particular function. If you're trying to exploit it for some other reason to slow down the assurance rate, that's just ridiculous, because what you're doing is you're causing a network impact in posting of blocks. So get past the fact that you're trying to reduce the assurance rate and get all to the fact that your service level is going to crap. So you need, if people have built their decentralized applications predicated on a 15-second block time or 60-second block time, whatever, you're going to have dApps that are indirectly affected because people are having an issue with the difficult bomb. It's just a feature, and just keep it at that. So that's kind of, I guess, as stern warning as I can to the development community in the Ethereum space, that do not take your personal or your any kind of motives on messing around with the difficult bomb unless you are ready to deploy proof of stake. It's not even a question. You shouldn't even debate it. Understand what it's there for. Moving on to the next EIP. Like if I was a scrum master in that, I'd be just shutting that crap down. Like even in discussion on that, I'm like, guys, it's here for a particular function. Like move past it. If you want to do something else that looks and smells and feels like messing with block time, then put it under a different context. All right, so we're in let's look at EIP 1295. This is the last one, and then we're going to get into going through more specifics on, what does all this mean, and then my kind of opinions on it. EIP 1295, modify Ethereum proof of work incentive structure and diffuse the difficult bomb. So we obviously know right out of the gate that this particular one is reducing the difficult bomb, or delaying it. All these are delay. I don't think anybody's suggesting to take it out. I mean, it serves a function, but delaying it and continuously delaying it should be all. Those are functions that should be part of agendas when it gets neared every time for scheduled hard forks, and we'll get into that kind of discussion too. But if we look at, let's see here, a simple summary: a network security over an overall ecosystem maturity warrants a continued incentivized proof of work and participation, but allows for reduction and ancillary ETH assurance to remove the difficult bomb. So this will take. Let's go down here. Words. Their current ETH block reward of 3 will remain constant. Furthermore, uncle rewards will be adjusted. Nephew rewards will be removed. Okay, so what they're saying is, starting with the client will calculate the difficulty without an additional exponent component. That's a fancy way of saying removing or pushing off the difficult bomb. Furthermore, uncle rewards will be adjusted and nephew rewards will be removed to eliminate the excessive ancillary ETH assurance. So what they're proposing here is also a uncle reduction, and then a nephew removal. Nephews, I think, are very, very low amount already, but this would remove them completely, which at the end of the day is just removing the total amount of ETH assurance into the network. Network scalability and security are the forefront risk. More words about the incentives to do this. Okay, remove the difficult bomb. I stand corrected. They want to remove the difficult bomb. Remove difficult bomb on this one, and then adjust the uncle rewards. New uncle reward 3 minus K. New block. Okay, that will result in a little less. It's not 0.25. It would probably go down to 0.3. Uncle rewards to adjust levels 2 to reduction rate. It would move the nephew reward to 0, and then it would recalculate the uncle reward. Oh, there, they actually type it out. So 0.75 and then a 0.375. So yeah, it would, on your uncle rewards, it would be, your level 1 uncle would be a 0.75. So moving from like a 2 to 3, from uncles from 2 to 0.75 and 0.375. So pretty significant. It's about a 75% reduction in uncle rewards. Through August here, the average reward for an uncle is 2.27. The year-to-date uncle rate is 22%. So what they're saying here is based on their calculations of looking between these dates, 635,000 uncle rewards were induced into the Ethereum network. So what they're saying is that that's a massive increase because you're essentially rewarding the activity of creating an uncle, back into what I was saying earlier. It's just another way to reduce the total inflation of Ethereum and reducing uncle and nephews here. Backwards compatibility. Okay, so that's all that's really on this EIP. I do not see any Prog proof of work. All of these included just the assurance reductions, and these were all difficult. And okay, so they did it in the Ethereum Dev Meeting as a separate bullet point. So these three EIPs do not include any kind of proof of work adjustment. That's a separate item down here that they brought up kind of in the discussion here during this kind of part of the agenda, which was to implement Prog proof of work, which we've covered before on this channel of kind of what it is and how it functions and works. So you can go back to one of those presentations, but this essentially would be changing the underlying algorithm, tweaking it to where you would take off ASICs off the network. Part of the sentiment in this meeting was that there wasn't a huge influence of ASICs right now, and they're not that much more efficient. It depends on the price point. They are much more efficient if you're buying an $800 unit from Bitmain to do essentially what a $2,500 mining rig can do. That's about as efficient as it gets from a rationale to want to potentially change and would propagate, lots and lots of ASICs and be very anti-competitive to GPU miners. But more so than that, there's a whole litany of discussion when it comes to the centralization of hash power through specific devices and that sort of thing. So based on what I heard on that meeting, there was a lot of misconceptions and misnomers on what Prog proof of work was bringing. Some of the people that were speaking at the Ethereum Develop Meeting were kind of pontificating on what its real effects would have. Look at any ASIC-driven arms race on a particular algorithm that once an ASIC's cut on it and people start to learn it, and then it gets exponential growth of the ASIC tech on that algorithm, it's pretty much a nonstop show until ASICs are running the show. So Prog proof of work is a step in breaking that cycle for Ethereum, and it's a statement as much as it is a functional change. So let's come off of this real quick so I can kind of go to main camera, and then we'll go through these in particular opinions and what they do, and we'll run the model and simulation on it. But I want to talk about changing algorithms for a second. A change of an algorithm is as strong as a statement as you can make to companies that would invest and spend money stamping out a particular piece of hardware. So it's as much cultural explanation as it is technical, I think, in that realm. If you look at Kryptonite V7 and what they did with that, are there going to be ASICs that are going to go after it? I think anytime the price is at a certain level that it makes sense, you're always going to have this constant risk analysis if a company is going to stamp out a chip or not. So if Prog proof of work is in there, it definitely solves the short term and bricks essentially those ASICs out there. then you're going to have an entire other effort of looking on how to, if Ethereum and any Ethash currency that moves their algorithm to a Prog proof of work, if that ecosystem grows exponentially again, which I believe personally, this is a personal opinion, that everything will not only recover but go way back over any all-time high that it's ever been, you're going to have an economic incentive to try to take advantage of that. So it's more of the consistency in the statement that if it stays with proof of work, are they going to continue to ensure that, hey, if you change this or if you do this, we're going to change it every time. And software can change faster than the hardware, right? So that's the main story. That's what essentially Kryptonite V7 did. That's essentially what the, I would say, stewardship of what Monero is doing right now with XMR, of saying that if you create an ASIC and we find out about it, we're going to fork the network. So that creates a very strong statement of a de-incentivization. And then it's going to come down just to cycle time and how fast can they print and press if it goes to the roof. If Monero was immediately shot up to $2,500, I guarantee you that companies out there would be trying to make ASICs for the current algorithm and take that hedged risk that for the short period of time that they could get a growth of amount of currency, because they're going to have a competitive advantage. The only deltas that's going to happen is you're not going to see that go commercial. You're going to see it stay private. You're going to see the investment potential. So there's quality gates that occur in any kind of incentive mechanism like this, to where if it goes up very quickly, you're going to have a huge amount of interest in people building hardware for stuff like that. And then you may have the commercial side of people going, well, I could sell that hardware too, and make money off of, the millions of potential buyers that are out there for it. Or I can keep it very tight and small. I'll be the only person doing it and nobody will know. And then I'll just get the rewards on the assurance side of the currency versus trying to get people to pay me for hardware. So there's this situation, and it's an equilibrium and it's a balance. So if you have steady growth and it continues to grow, then you're going to have that whole product line kind of concept come out in these proof of work algorithms. So I'm not discounting that. I think that there's, for the mechanics of making money and being part of this ecosystem in that capacity, if you're a miner, that's great. And you are believing in and holding up a network, and you're compensated in a token that happens to be worth money. But there's a whole other immeasurable, and I call it immeasurable because there's not enough data to find out exactly who and what and how much people have spent and done on mining. But there's an immeasurable count and calculation out there when it comes to an ecosystem. And this is the point I was trying to make on a few tweets, of where since May or March of last year to now, BBT, as our BBT at Gmail and our bitsbetrippin.io, from an email and a correspondence standpoint from the grassroots mining community, we've received over 120,000 emails. From the 120,000 emails and pulling them in, and if I pull that into a filter and I do a search, essentially take all the headers, move it into Access, do a quick search and query on just headers, and I try to remove all the ICOs and everything else, I'm left with almost 40,000. So there's about 80 to 90,000 of just crap of people trying to sell me stuff or people trying to talk up their ICOs. About 40 to 45,000 like individual unique email addresses with people that are asking about questions about mining, about, hey, I have a 7-card rig and it doesn't work. And here's what I'm trying to do, right? Those kind of questions, like 40,000. So people that try to reach out to us and are like, hey, need some support. And I always point them pretty quickly and sometimes programmatically to just like, hey, this video may solve your problem. That kind of ecosystem is the reason for something like Prog proof of work, is the reason for changing algorithms, because you're creating a massive grassroots word of mouth system for the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. That is not measurable. Like, people measure it in like the success of how high the price goes. But if you've created a large, massive community that have one-to-many connections to friends, one person mines, 7 to 10 people know that person, right? And if they're an introvert, maybe 3 people know them, right? But people know that they mine, and they're probably not going to mine. Their friends of friends and all that might come down and say, hey, that's cool. What is it about? Why are you making a capital investment in this ecosystem? You're a smart person. You can program or you can do things. Why are you doing this? And then that person explains it to them, and then they become a potential counterparty by going out and purchasing the currency, right? They're like, you know what? I'm not going to mine, but I am going to get a Coinbase account and I will buy incrementally, $100 here and $100 there. You create an ecosystem. If you take mining as a whole, you got to use it as a tool, and not just from the functionality standpoint, but as a tool from getting a word out from individual educators that are out there. That's what that community drives, right? That the amount of support that this mining community and the people that are in our Discord and Voscoin's Discord and everybody else that out there, the amount of individual heroism that comes out of explaining what crypto is or talking about, why they're into it, creates this huge ecosystem. It's not all style, no substance, right? The substance is the fact that we spend 12 hours sometimes working on a damn mining rig, versus people that are on the outside that look at crypto, kind of briefly come in, go to the parties, put the hats on, act like they're in crypto, and have no substantive conversation with anybody, right? Like, that's what people ask me, like, why don't you go to a lot of the conferences and stuff? I don't go to 90% of the conferences because when I walk around there's only a handful of people that I can have a genuinely good conversation with. Most of the people are there for superficial reasons, right? And that goes with anything. Like, if I went to marketing release parties for a particular product, most of the people there are there for the party and not necessarily for the product, right? So, like, that's what I feel and that's what I see. And it's nothing against anybody that's a part of those ecosystems or there at that party. I have nothing personally against anybody like that. But it's just like, are you moving an ecosystem? Are you part of an ecosystem in some capacity? And people have this misnomer on miners in general. Miners, at least the 40,000+ that have reached out to us, are just normal people that got into this space, that are excited in the space, that are techie and geeky and love the grinding out of figuring out how to get something to work, and then participate in a network and hold it up, and are not so tightly bound either way on, like, I'm very positional on this position, or I'm very opinionated on this position on where the ecosystem should go. It's like, man, I'm holding up a network and I'm compensated in a token, and I'm trying to help get the word out initially on this platform, and hope that there are other people that are going to take that baton on their particular disciplines to explain it to people, like on sharding or on network scalability or on what does it make sense for gas reduction on to make the EVM cheaper for people to be able to use it for a dApp. That kind of stuff I can talk about, but I'm expecting people that are strong, disciplined in that space to help drive that ecosystem, right? So, sorry for a long tangent. It goes around the concept of Prog proof of work and what it means to be a miner, what it means to continue to allow that ecosystem to thrive and not get so super commercialized in a single device for the intention of, becoming a very centralized mining. So, the decentralized concept of mining is hugely valuable to the entire ecosystem, and it's one of the most missed things in the world. And a lot of it's because people do not, a majority of the developers and all that don't mine. They don't have, it was just a feature, right? It's like, oh, that thing happens and people get reward. Great. So it's very easy for them to dismiss what it's actually done for their platform because they have no idea of how much it's helped, how much it's communicated, and how much of the ecosystem has been driven and thrived from that. And they'll find out in a very ill effect of a very hollow, network that doesn't have, a lot of people in the ecosystem. And everybody that tries to compare it to Bitcoin's its own thing, man. Bitcoin's a movement, right? It's a change of status of the way things are. And because it's centralized mining, it's a nuclear arms race when it comes to hardware, and it embodies a completely different setup because the SHA-256 isn't going to be changed in Bitcoin. That would take a massive hard fork and a lot of agreement. The beauty thing about Bitcoin is the fact that not anybody can control it in any capacity. It doesn't matter if government, doesn't matter if you're a huge conglomerate of big money. You could take all the big companies in the world and they could throw all their money at trying to build mining rigs, and you'd have this other huge arm race that just exacerbates the size of network security of being able to make a major change to it, to change the core features of it. So it's its own thing, and it has its own benefits because of those rationale and that reasons. When you're talking about a proof of work currency like Ethereum or any of these other alt currencies that are more platform driven to build other things on top of them, it's a different use case. It's a different feature set from that. So it does matter on growing it. It's another feature that allows a community to thrive. So again, sorry, we kept going on here. Let's get back to this main point. I was trying to really hit home the point of what makes Prog proof of work and algorithm changes relevant. Let's go into the overall details of each. Recap: 558 reduction from 3 to 1. We're taking an assumption that they're going to delay the difficult bomb on that one, and that's it. 1234, which is the EIP difficult bomb delay. Uncle reduction, significant uncle reduction, which is a assurance payout adjustment, and then reduction from 3 to 2. And then 1295, adjust the difficult bomb. Actually, I think remove the difficult bomb. And then uncle reward reduction, also pretty significant reward reduction. Nephew reward reduction completely, like take it all the way out. So all of it kind of stems around reward reduction. And take your flavor from 3 to 1, 3 to 2, or keep it at 3 but reduce uncles, and you'd see a same effect essentially in a reward reduction. The one that cuts the deep, and funnily, number 1 or the 858 doesn't do anything with uncles. So when I'm kind of measuring all this, they're all probably almost pretty close to equal in total assurance to the ETH network of reduction. You can take from 3 to 1, keep uncles in, and then you're just going to incentivize people doing uncles. 1, 2, 3, 2 to 1, or 3 to 2, and then reduce uncles, and then 1295, remove nephews, reduce uncles, but keep it at 3. So 1295 probably has the highest assurance rate, so where you would be getting more ETH per current hash power, if I'm reading that correctly, from 1295. Because you're keeping the main reward at 3. So let's talk rewards in general and why it matters, or what all of this kind of what should have been said, let's just say, or what I would have said if I was on that call. I would have said, I think some of your guys' incentives are kind of misaligned. I think that the folks that have that showed up on the call that are represented by investors were also miners, supposedly themselves. And I don't know any of the folks that were on that call that were doing mining themselves. But when you start having investors making decisions, or trying to help make decisions, bad things are going to occur. And I'm an investor in all kinds of things, right? But I'm not going to go in there and try to influence their decision, like lobby, right? I'm going to just say, in the interest of the health of the ecosystem, like what they should do from a mechanical standpoint, but I'm not going to tell them how to change the reward system on how to pay stuff. I'd be like an investor coming in and saying, pay people less because I want to make more money. And I think it's a bad start. I think that the ecosystem in general, like this entire concept of this is completely a waste of time. Because of a few things. If you reduce the reduction, you're automatically assuming that it's going to be worth more. Right now, ETH is sitting at 290. It's lower than it was whenever the reduction happened, right? and they keep saying, oh, the ETH hash power went through the roof, and it continues to go even with the reward reduction. That is purely predicated on the fact that it was ETH went to $1,500, right? And all the rest of the altcoins kind of came down in value since January, and ETH still remained as one of the top coins because of the altcoin reduction. It's just a math problem, bros. It's not that difficult to understand that if it's the most profitable thing, most of the hash power is going to be on it, right? So the fact that it went from 5 to 3, and then when it went from 5 to 3, it went from like $300 to $1,500. Of course the hash rate's going to increase. It's completely driven to increase because there's a huge windfall to be made there, and the fact that 5 to 3 made no difference at all, right? When it came to profitability, in December, people were making more than they were making when the difficult bomb was off, right? In May, like profitability was actually higher for a period of time there, even with the reduction, because the ETH was worth more. And even though they got a fractional rate, it actually off-balanced it, right? And that's what this is, in my opinion, is going to do. Like, you can go and try to force it and reduce the assurance, thinking that you're going to get a price drive up, right? Which all that really helps is people that already have ETH, right? That already have a bag, right? Because any participation going forward, unless the price goes way through the roof and you create a economy of scale change of, I'm only getting 0.4 ETH a day, and that's not or 0.04 ETH a day on my single mining rig, and I'm making $1.50 on a mining rig right now because of current price. And then ETH goes from 3 to 1, I'm making now 0.0006, right? So now I drop from $1.60 a day on one single rig down to 15 cents, right? 20 cents. Because there's a huge massive reduction in there. If ETH goes up by a 10x factor, and now I was only making 15 cents, but now I'm making $1.50 again, right? Because now ETH just went up 10x. Who did that help? If you had a bag of 500 ETH, that helps you a lot, because now the ETH's worth whatever dollars. And that's my whole point of this, is that if you can try to force it, but what's the incentive? Who are you trying to kid short of the investors that have made big probably purchases in ETH at $1,500, and now you have a mechanical you're wanting a mechanical change to create an incentive structure to try to drive price. It's a danger zone, and we already saw that it didn't have that much effect, because right now the hash rate, regardless of where it's at right now, it's an OpEx math problem. If ETH becomes grossly unprofitable to mine, that's a fuse. It's a fuse to a bomb, right? And you can only burn that out so long, and it's a cost burn, OpEx, P&L situation, no matter how you spin it. I mean, it's the same way with us, right? 2,500 GPU farm, 330 rigs. If everything went down to a certain point, we mechanically cannot operate that farm anymore, right? Otherwise, we're just burning through any kind of ETH bag or any of the other stuff that we've tried to store from a whole standpoint. So it's only the strongest survive in that, with regards to the deepest pockets or the largest amount of Ethereum or anything like that. So if you reduce the reward reductions and you do not get the reciprocating action of ETH increasing, then any kind of current burn that you're receiving from your current setup, the ETH hash rate will monstrously go down. Now, the long-term play of what people are looking at, meaning like if you're operating a farm, it's much more cheaper for you just to buy ETH. Take any kind of ops expense. If you have $17,000 a month going into that, then it makes absolute sense to take that 17 grand and go buy ETH, right? And then just hodl, because your risk profile switches, where you're going away from a hedge of having equipment that's still worth money. And then if everything goes belly up, then you still have your equipment that you can divest and sell, and you hedge some of your costs. Where if you had all your ETH and it goes down, then you've lost everything, right? You've lost any money that you put in there. So this has all been a balance in that, and these incentive adjustments are just, I don't see who they benefit short of people that have had it. And mind you, I've been mining for a long time, so people are probably like, "What the hell are you talking about, dude? Like, do you not have bags? Are you not part?" I'm looking at it from an ecosystem standpoint. I want the most participation in a network because that's going to give me the most potential scalable growth on an ecosystem. That's number one. That's the number one position I've always been on as BBT. I'm talking obviously opinion. That's the reason why I have a YouTube channel with 1,500 plus hours of content for free for people, is to build an ecosystem. Because if you have enough people that understand, and if they're part of that community, and you have a development community that's part of that, and they start building and fixing and changing problems. I mean, Vitalik of all people, right? Vitalik used to play WoW and got incentivized to learn programming because WoW nerfed one of his characters. I mean, guys, it doesn't take much to start a catalyst of a brilliant person to move into that space. If I have the chance to help incubate an ecosystem that allows many people to be part of that, and not just people that want to just invest into a system, but actually be part of it and grow it, that's number one, right? So something like Prog Proof of Work, something like that allows a potential to have a lot of people to be involved in an ecosystem is number one. So this would drive a lot out. This would drive all of the miners out of at least Ethereum, right? It's not all like the sky's falling. Like, there's more than Ethereum. By and large, our farm is not even mining Ethereum anymore. And I'm putting the time in to try to explain this to people, right? Because I believe in what they're trying to do, right? From a platform standpoint, especially. But we had to make adjustments for ourselves too, because I wasn't competing at the level with, people either taking a bigger chance on it, or people that have a lot more scale and have better cost situation on their OpEx side on paying for farm. So, I think reward reduction is like a last ditch effort for some folks to try to ensure that there's less ETH in the ecosystem and price is going to go up, and take the kind of Bitcoin effect of a scheduled assurance. What I would say and agree with is that if you produce a schedule and you say we're going to have a scheduled reduction moving forward, I would support that, because I think people can then get around it. I think people can see what's coming. They understand. They can position themselves. And you have an entire market effect that happens because of things on a schedule. Bitcoin's on a schedule. People know it. It's on a particular block. At that block, it executes, right? Like, there's no discussion. It's the schedule and it's published, right? That allows everybody to just accept the fact that that's part of the business rules. Right now, this is changing business rules mid-game. This is like being in the middle of the game. They're like, yeah, that's a 15-yard pass interference, and we're going to make that 20 now. Why? Because we think that there's better drama in the game if now you have a higher risk to not do that action, right? The game has started. We're running, and this will be the second assurance in 12 months reduction. So slow down and let's think about this. Produce a schedule, maybe from the fruits of this, these EIPs. Take a conglomerate of them, put together going forward with the rationale that's out there, and say on block X, we're going to do these things. On block X, we're going to do these things and kick them off, right? And everybody needs to flag for it, right? Just like any other hard fork. And then there's a schedule out there. So not just a meeting and let's discuss it and then just go fire it in the next hard fork, right? Schedule is a huge key to that. I'm greatly, I would have been positioning myself on there to say, what is the real intentions here? And let's talk more of a schedule that this could be implemented in the more long-term concept of Ethereum. The uncle and reward reductions, I always thought it was weird that I was getting compensated differently when I could mine ETH to ethermine.org, and I would be mining and I'd be waiting for the next block that I would be rewarded, and I'd get 5, and then I would get 5, and I would get 5, and then magically I would get 9. And I'm like, man, that's nice. What a bonus round, right? That whole activity has always kind of concerned me. That it's just, if you change an incentive and you give somebody else the incentive to exploit that system, it's going to be exploited. And now we have 22% uncle rates, because there's an incentivized activity to try to figure out mechanically how you can create the race condition, right? So I'm kind of, I guess I would say, for an uncle reduction, just from the fact that if you incentivize bad behavior, or if you incentivize a mechanism that allows for higher incentive, a potential for a higher reward, then you're probably going to get people that are going to try to drive to that, right? So unless the entire ecosystem knows that, hey, there's probably going to be a 30 to 40% uncle reward rate because people are just incentivized to do it, and then it comes into a mechanical discussion on the algorithm of what's in the realm of possible of slowing down, winning a block, holding back, doing that kind of selfish mining kind of routine, and then releasing it and creating the race condition on every block, right? Then you would have, that would be the ultimate kind of where it could go mechanically if, people could create a system from a network topography standpoint. But with it highly decentralized, in a centralized system, I think you could do it a lot easier because it's centralized and you can have a lot more control. So if a whole bunch of everything went to Inesilin and Bitmain ASICs, and that became the whole network, and then you could calculate those into like 400,000 ASICs, and they're on 5 farms, and you have 2 pools, then yeah, you're gonna get won overed by that network every day, all day long, because you allowed the ecosystem to go there, right? To where if you have a hugely high distributed setup, it's a little more difficult for a few bad actors to create that situation. My kind of other piece there was, and I kind of went through it in my little rant earlier, was the ecosystem importance. Like they do not understand the level of participation that built this ecosystem for Ethereum. This wasn't just CNBC and everybody coming in on it. This was a massive, every GPU on the planet for a period of time was sold. Like you couldn't find one anywhere, right? That kind of, and I'm not saying that's necessarily good. I'm saying that there's room for improvement across the board, but that massive growth of people and participants was more than just dollar signs rolling into Coinbase. It was an ecosystem, people building equipment, chasing the dollar for sure, but in that pursuit, kind of Mr. Miyagi style, and learning about crypto and then communicating about crypto. And some of it incorrectly communicating about crypto. But as people start calling each other out on it and all that kind of stuff, people get more diverse, and they become more respectful of this environment and do a much more, kind of an, and I don't want to call it an embodiment, but like a disciple of explaining crypto to people, right? So there's a huge ecosystem play here on growth, and if you discount miners to just being these like money hungry people and all this other stuff, you're missing the freaking points, dudes. Because I went to miner conferences, I've had the little miner call outs with folks, and by and large it's just people that are trying to participate in the network. They're compensated. That's part of the system. Like don't ever, if you're a miner, don't feel bad if you get compensated. You're doing work. You've spent CapEx cost $200 or $2,500, $5,000 on mining equipment. You spent money and you're feeding it power, and you're compensated by the token that's incentivized on the network. Don't be sorry for that at all. That's the way it works, right? That is like that's the functionality of it. That's how it works. That's the whole point. That's why Bitcoin's still proof of work, right? You could participate. But to discount that as like, and I think it's because of just culturally, if you have people that are going after or chasing the dollar in some way, or chasing money in general, you usually have this kind of, I don't know, call this sleazy kind of approach to the concept of the people that go for that. And it's like, there might be groups of people that are like that, but don't stereotype it, right? There's a lot of good people that are mining. I have people in our group of BBT that are developing, learning Solidity and Go, and trying to write smart contracts, and have gotten into the ecosystem that help embody that. So, don't classify all that in there that it's all bad. Like, and don't be mad or spiteful on people that have made big investments into the space also, and have held up that ecosystem and, gotten a lot more people involved in it. But be careful if you're, one of those large ecosystem people and you're approaching it purely from just the money side of it too. Understand that if you're trying to tweak settings to try to maximize your profits, you probably end up going to get burned in it. And at the end of the day, you'd be a lot better to help. You have the mining and you're getting an assurance at that point. Then spend some effort on educating other people in the ecosystem. Spend some effort on maybe doing development projects, outreach, make a YouTube channel, explain your farm, right? Because then you'll get other people that start to want to understand and learn the system. So again, I'm off on my tangent and tyrant, depiction. I'm reaching out to Hudson. I put in a message. If I can make it looks Friday, I look good time-wise. If they're having another meeting on Friday, I will be part of it. I will try to be part of it. And I will at least try to spend at least a few minutes explaining the ecosystem to the developers. With real hard numbers. Like, this isn't me making up shit, guys. I mean, if not to open up PII information, person identified information, but I'll be happy to get 4 or 5 of the developers, the critical developers, Vitalik himself if I have to, and spend 10 minutes. I'll fly to wherever they're at and I'll sit down with them and I'll show our setup. I'll show the emails that I get, as kind of, I'd say, just the support stuff that people ask for, and give them an insight to what real community, real growth of their ecosystem has been. Like, I will take that. That'd be personally paid by me, right? And I'll reach out to Hudson. I'll find out, what's going on. And if that takes, I have to try to get out to DevCon or whatever, so be it. But it needs to be tactical, and I need to make sure that I'm having them listen and hearing in. So I'll try to make that dev call if they let me get onto that dev call, and I'll hopefully represent the community as best I can in that space. So hopefully this kind of explained kind of where things are at. My position, if I was to select any of these, would be probably a different EIP that would include a delay of the difficult bomb, because that makes sense. The uncle and nephew reward reduction, I'm for that, because I think if you create an incentive, an extra incentive, you're just going to get people that are going to exploit that incentive, which was supposed to fix a functional stell issue with blocks, but now is being exploited because it's rewarded. So then the nephew and uncle reward reduction, and I'd probably keep ETH at 3 right now. I don't think the reward reduction alone from the nephews is going to create an effect that I think they're looking for. But changing the assurance rate again, you can nuke the rewards, change the proof of work algorithm to also to ensure that the GPU communities out there that have supported and have continued to support are able to continue to support without the influence of potentially large centralization of mining. So I'm for that. I think there is an ASIC place for ASICs in the world. I think it has to do with the algorithms that are out there for them that are not challenging and have started their entire mantra. If you read what Ethereum is to be ASIC resistant. Then you gotta when the time comes, be ASIC resistant, bro. So, your long-term plan is going proof of stake. That's fine. So, delay the difficult bomb because it serves a function. When you're ready to go proof of stake, it goes off and incentivizes activity to move on to the other. So, that's where I'm at on it. Hopefully this has been good, guys. I'm going to take this video and I'm going to upload it in its entirety to YouTube. And later today, I am going to do a live stream, and we will be giving another GPU away. And there's no gimmick with the GPUs that I give away, guys. So these are GPUs that we either had bought for mining had used during mining for a certain period of time, and then are literally sitting on a shelf. Like our CapEx and the operations expenses and whatever these GPUs or their brethren of family type earned us, paid for themselves. So these are essentially zero cost GPUs to us, and that are literally sitting on a shelf, and they don't make sense from a power standpoint to use them. So like this is a Dual X R9 280 X and 3 gig overclocked. This one was still brand new. This is a rig that we just didn't build, and we had 6 of them, and we've given a couple away. So stream later to this evening, I'll give another one of these away. I mean, these are like $230 GPUs, and we just, I had an army of these that were mining ETH and other things at the time, and it earned all their money back. So they're just sitting on a shelf, and they'll never get used. So that's what we're giving away. So there's no gimmick to it. There's no catch. It's just like, it's us giving back to the community for doing good work too. And we'll cover the shipping on that and stuff. So this will be out later tonight. So share, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Again, we've given 2 of those away, and we're going to be building this KC 6 GPU SS 6-bay mining case. I found this at Micro Center. I know nothing about it. They didn't send it to me or anything like that. It's from Kingwin, and we're gonna put this together, and we'll put some stuff on there. So if you guys join later, we'll target probably 8-9 o'clock, somewhere around that Central Standard Time for that live stream. And then obviously that live stream will be uploaded to YouTube, but you'll be out of opportunity to pick that up. Wife needs a GPU in her rig. There you go. Thanks for the folks. It looks like hollering 1,000 biddies. Thanks for that 1,000-bit cheer, buddy. We got some follows, and we got a Crypto Nuffy with that tier 1 subscribe for the 6 months. Thank you, sir, for that. Hopefully this was good and you guys enjoyed it. I always ask the same thing. If you guys like this kind of content, I think you guys do. So, I mean, it's part of any kind of technical breakdown that I can provide to you guys. I will continue to do that. Hopefully, I do a lot of rambling when I'm talking, especially if I'm doing, I'm trying to think about what I'm trying to say. I had some points, and I try to keep it in point today, but hopefully it was good and you guys enjoyed it. And